This one's for the mothers who are toying with the idea of homeschooling, or those of you who have recently started homeschooling, or homeschooling mothers in general who need some encouragement and inspiration. I think that all homeschooling mothers and parents in general would benefit from reading these books, and I myself have read most of them more than once. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nives and I'm a homeschooling mom to two girls, and I've recently left my corporate career to stay home and homeschool my kids. And on this channel I talk about homeschooling in those early preschool and kindergarten years using the Charlotte Mason methodology and finding strength in your faith for your motherhood and homeschooling journey. Okay, so today I really wanted to talk about those homeschooling books that have helped inspire me, enlighten me, and give me the conviction to homeschool in those early days when I was trying to figure out whether to homeschool or not, as well as those early days when I was just getting started on our homeschooling journey and needed that extra encouragement. These are books that I've read more than once, and some of them I feel the need to read them over and over again so I can take everything in. They're books meant to inspire you as a mother and a teacher to cultivate that love of learning through building the right atmosphere in your home and the right rhythm for your family so that your children can really thrive in their homeschooling. So the first recommendation I have is The Call of the Wild and Free by Ainsley Arment. And I found so much encouragement reading this book, so much so that I read it twice. Once before we started homeschooling, before the idea of homeschooling was even on my mind, someone had recommended this book and I accidentally started reading it. And then I loved it. It honestly, I think, added that little twinkle of inspiration to homeschool in my head. And then later, when we started our homeschooling journey, I read it again just for that extra encouragement and for that extra inspiration, which this book is filled with. It's definitely a book I would recommend to parents who are looking to take a leap towards homeschooling and who are starting and need that extra encouragement. It's filled with encouragement, it's filled with wisdom. It goes over the initial twinge to homeschool all the way to homeschooling through those really hard, difficult times. It also gives practical tips on how to integrate nature in homeschool and what it means to homeschool the wild and free way. The whole premise of this book, I would say, is how homeschooling in its core could allow you to reclaim your motherhood journey, as well as giving your children that thriving, once-in-a-life chance at a childhood. So the next book is A Waking Wonder by Sally Clarkson, and I absolutely love everything by Sally Clarkson. She has so many books under her belt, and she provides so much wise, faithful encouragement to homeschooling mothers. She doesn't know it, obviously, but she's been such a mentor to me in my own journey in discovering and reclaiming my faith, and particularly about how that transpires into motherhood and education, but also in my own household and in my family relationships. I personally wouldn't describe myself as a type A personality, but I'm also not exactly easygoing, and A Waking Wonder just reminded me to slow down and really concentrate on building those special moments and that special relationship with my children. It's okay to get off schedule, and it's okay to embrace those off the path moments with your children, because it is in those moments that your children learn to love to learn. And that is ultimately what the goal of homeschooling is. It's a book about the importance of relationship building with our children and how that in itself is the key to opening up and reaching our children's hearts and cultivating a love of learning. The next book is Dumbing Us Down by John Gatto. And this is one of those books that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about the public school system, the way it came about, what it is designed for, and who really it's designed for. It's a pretty short read, and I would say if you're on the fence about the public school system versus homeschooling, which one you should choose, and if you're seeking to understand why the public school system is really built at the detriment of our children, then I would recommend you read this book. Here I have 10 Ways to Destroy the Imagination of Your Child by Anthony Esolen, and I've referenced this book in a number of my other videos about integrating read-alouds and read-alouds of classic and reducing screen time in your family. So this is written in a bit of a cheeky way in terms of how you would go about really destroying the imagination of your child. Here are the steps. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, there's different methods he goes over in how to achieve the destruction of your child's imagination. So method 1, keep your children indoors as much as possible, or they used to call it air. Method 2, never leave children to themselves. Method 3, keep children away from machines and machinists, or all unauthorized personnel prohibited. Method 4, replace the fairy tale with political cliches and fads. Method 5, cast aspirations upon the heroic and patriotic. Method 6, cut all heroes down to size. Method 7, reduce all talk of love to narcissism and sex. Method 8, level distinctions between men and women. Method 9, distract the child with the shallow and unreal. And method 10, deny the transcendent or fix above the heads of men the lowest ceiling of all. This one was a very insightful read. As I was going through it, obviously made me think a lot about, as parents, what we're doing that might not be to the best benefit of our children. So it made me rethink a lot of things we were already doing and how we can change them and better them. Okay, so the next 3 books, I've listened to them in audio format, so I don't have any physical copies with me. So the first one is Teaching from Rest by Sarah Mackenzie. This book, I've seen it recommended before I even started homeschooling, and I went into it without knowing much about it, and now I've read it twice actually. So the first time I read it, a lot of it went over my head because I wasn't a Christian, and this is a book about biblical parenting and biblical homeschooling, and this is not where my mind was at the time. So coming to God was a very recent experience for me, and I posted my testimony about that in one of my videos. And as a lifelong atheist, I was very convicted in my approach to not integrating religion in my children's childhoods or education except for the historical context. So obviously a lot of that has changed since then. And now I find the most comfort and the most guidance in the Word of God, my prayers with God, that time alone that I have with Him. That is really my driving force in my homeschooling journey, and I would say it's also the driving force of my children. But this book really portrays that so well that it really takes you into that big picture and not to focus on how things are currently or how things might not seem to be working the way you want them to be working, because God has a plan and your children are there for a reason. And just trust in God. And eventually, and this is, I'm paraphrasing what I'm remembering, but basically we are building a cathedral. We don't see it being built, but decades down the road, there's a legacy that happens with that. It's about getting away from our own rigid standards and embracing a more peaceful, a slower, and a more diligent way of teaching. So the other book I don't have with me is The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart. And in this book, she provides her own living experiences to help us through our homeschooling journey, which is not always smooth sailing, as we would know. She speaks about how to empower our homeschool experience and how to unlock a love of learning amongst our children through what she calls the 4 forces of enchantment, so which are surprise, mystery, risk, and adventure. And it's a beautiful and an inspiring read. The third book I don't have with me is Hold On to Your Kids by Dr. Gordon Neufeld and Dr. Gabor Mate. This is not a homeschooling book, it's a parenting book, but it is filled with wisdom about how we can nurture this relationship with our children and how the way we nurture that relationship and the relationship in general will lead to our children either being attached to us as parents or attached to their peers. And we want them to have the parental attachment rather than the peer attachment. And the latter often leads to those situations where the child has that alienation from their family. We know it as teen angst, where the kid just rebels against the family, cannot confine or find peace within the family, and just gets further and further away from their parents. So how we can remedy to that and really build a strong, long-lasting relationship with our children. Again, this is one that I've read more than once. I read it when I first became a mother, and then I read it when I started homeschooling because I wanted to read it from that perspective to see how our homeschooling journey could give us opportunities to further build on that connection with our children. Because I truly believe that homeschooling allows us as parents to further invest in that healthy attachment with our children. And that's one of the huge benefits of the lifestyle, getting to nurture that close relationship with our kids, getting to grow up together as a family, having siblings grow up together, and really fostering that familial and that parent attachment amongst them. So I'm going to finish off my book recommendations with the one book that is really guiding the whole premise of our homeschooling journey, and that is Home Education by Charlotte Mason. So this is one that I keep close by and that I keep going back to because honestly, I rely on its guidance in the home education of my children. So this volume is for ages 9 and under, so it's highly useful for me. Those unfamiliar with Charlotte Mason who might have stumbled upon my video, she was a British educator, writer, and philosopher at the end of the 19th, beginning 20th century. And she was really a revolutionary in the way that she thought about education and in the way she thought about how we should be educating our children. The entire premise of her philosophy is that children are born persons with the thirst for knowledge, and as parents, it's our responsibility to reach them through good, true, and noble ideas. And her methodology instructs us to use living books as opposed to textbooks, to narrate as opposed to asking children to recite something by memory, and the importance of really raising children who are naturalists through nature study. So like I said, this book is truly a guiding principle for us as Charlotte Mason homeschoolers. I have a lot of wisdom that I get from it in these early years. It's one that my husband is also reading because we want to be on the same page as a homeschooling family. So if you are a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, there's really no other way to start and to know about it than reading Home Education by the lady herself. And there's no better place to find her guidance and to know how to apply her philosophy, not only in your homeschool, but in your day-to-day life as a mother teacher than in this book. So this is volume 1 for ages 9 and under, but there are 6 volumes in her home education series. So it's a thorough read, but I think it's necessary as a parent invested in the Charlotte Mason education. And I'd recommend you get started with this one because it's ages 9 and under, so it will cover you and it will help you immensely. Okay, so those are the books that I would recommend you read as a homeschooling parent or someone who is considering homeschooling. Obviously, there's so many more wonderful books out there that I myself have read, but I wanted to really talk about the ones that really stood out to me, and here they are. I would love to hear from you if there are any other books that you might have read that you would recommend I read, or if you've read these books and what your thoughts are on them. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. It just encourages me to keep making these videos, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you, everyone. Bye.